This is still 1.6, where we are looking at equations that are quadratic in form. Remember, a quadratic equation is going to have the form a u squared plus bu plus c is equal to 0. This is a form of a quadratic equation. Now, in this following example, you are looking at an equation that looks quadratic in form, except that this is to the fourth power, this is to the second power. But it looks very much like a quadratic equation. Now, one thing you need to ask yourself, it's not quadratic, but exactly how many solutions are you going to have with this problem? How many solutions? Do you remember how you can tell? You can look at that exponent right there. You're going to have 4 when all is said and done, because that is a power of 4. Now, I would suggest that you factor this polynomial. The ones that you have, the ones that you are given in this course, will all be able to factor. So remember, when you're factoring, 12x to the fourth minus 11x squared plus 2 is equal to 0. You're trying to unfold it. Now, for 12x to the fourth, we have several choices, but I believe 4x squared times 3x squared is what we're going to use, because 4x squared times 3x squared gives us 12x to the fourth. The next thing we need to look at is the 2. Since this is negative, we're going to use 2 and 1. And you do a quick check to make sure the middle terms turn out the same, and they do. So we have this factor. The next thing we do is set each factor equal to 0. So we're going to take 4x squared minus 1, put it equal to 0. And we're going to take 3x squared minus 2, put it equal to 0. In step 3, we're going to solve these for x. The easiest thing to do with these equations is to use your square root property. So let's move 1 to the other side. 4x squared is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 4. That gives you x squared is equal to 1/4. Your square root property says that x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. Just split this up into the square root of the top divided by the square root of the bottom. Now, we know how to take the square root of 1. It is 1, and we know the square root of 4 is 2. So this gives you 2 solutions, positive 1/2 and negative 1/2. We're going to get 2 solutions from this equation right here. Square root property, add your 2. 3x squared is equal to 2. Divide both sides by 3. So x squared is equal to 2 over 3. Your square root property, x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2 over the square root of 3. Now remember, you cannot leave a radical in the denominator, so you have to rationalize your denominator. And you do that by multiplying the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom of this equation by square root of 3 so we can get rid of the radicals. So x is plus or minus the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, which is 3. And here are 2 other answers. Positive square root of 6 over 3 and negative square root of 6 over 3. And these are our 4 answers. There are 2 here and 2 here. Remember, you have 4 answers. The other type of equation that is quadratic in form is an equation that has negative exponents. 6x to the negative 2 plus x to the negative 1 is equal to 2. Now, I want you to remember the definition of a negative exponent. If you have x to the negative n, the definition of this is that it is a reciprocal. It is defined to be 1 over x to the n power. So if you have, let's say, x to to the negative 2. By definition, that is 1 over x squared. If you have 3x to the negative 1, by definition, the 3 stays on top and the x goes to the bottom, so that becomes 3 over x. We're going to use this definition to solve this problem. Step 1, we are going to rewrite the equation with positive exponents using this definition. So this is going to be 6 over x squared plus 1 over x equals to 2. We wrote this with positive exponents. This is now a rational equation. Which means you've got variables in the denominator. So you have restrictions and you have common denominators. The restriction is that x cannot be 0 because that's what makes the denominator 0. Your common denominator is going to be x squared. So what you're going to do is multiply every term in here by x squared. So x squared times 6 over x squared plus x squared times 1 over x equals x squared times 2. If you need to put these over 1, put these over 1, but remember denominators cancel. We're getting rid of fractions. X squared cancels 6 plus. That x cancels with one of those, and I have 1 times x, which is x, equals, this is a multiplication symbol, 2 times x squared, which is 2x squared. This is now the equation that we need to solve. It is quadratic, so put it in standard form. I'm moving all of this to the other side. So I have 2x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Put this in your quadratic formula or factor it to solve it. Let's see if I put this in my quadratic formula with a as 2, b as negative 1, and c as negative 6. My quadratic formula gives me the answers of negative 1.5 and 2. My labs plus is probably going to want a fraction here. So we would put negative 3 over 2 and 2. These do not match my restriction, so these are my solutions. Now here are some problems from your ebook that are similar to these that will help you understand how to work these.